from the Bridget Mabandla Justice College, and he joins us now to give us a more comprehensive wrap of what the Commission has heard thus far. Very good morning to you, Ayanda. So at this point now, just before the tea adjournment, the question around why the urgency? Why was it so urgent to not even allow the process to maybe start being prepared, if you will, or the investigation to get underway? He was somebody that less than 24 hours after laying or opening those complaints, he lays the criminal charges, and then less than 24 hours you email the minister indicating that in fact those dockets have now been intercepted. We're still stuck on why the urgency.
That's right, Mfundo. And in fact, the evidence leader in Lee Sigels Ngube puts it to Adams that in fact the dockets hadn't even been assigned an investigator yet, and already he was sounding the alarm, for lack of a better term, around there being some kind of nefarious action to have the dockets intercepted. It was Sesi Baloyi who subsequently then put it to Fediel Adams that all of this stinks of machinations. It seems that there was a scheme, that's the words she used, to try and ensure that things culminate in the way that they do. And we know that ultimately all of this is brought to the attention of IDEC. IDEC then starts their investigation. The investigation ultimately culminates in the arrest of Dineo Mokoele, Dumsani Kumalo and others. And in fact, these individuals appear in the dock. We know that tomorrow, of course, the NPA has now announced that they're going to unequivocally withdraw those charges because the investigation, quite frankly, didn't follow the right process. But before we bring in Kenny Mapango, who's also been listening into what has been said here, it was interesting to hear Advocate Sandile Khumalo engage Fediel Adams about the timelines. More specifically, we know that when Fediel Adams opened these cases in Orlando, in Soweto, there were several other cases that were being opened, and it seems Brown Mokhotsi had some kind of involvement in those cases too. Take a listen to how that interaction unfolded.
Mr. Adams, there was a lot of activity in December 2024, and a lot of it involved Mr. Brown Mokhotsi assisting people with opening cases in Soweto. Did you, by any chance, speak to Mr. Brown Mokhotsi around November, December 2024?
General Lincoln was in contact with Mr. Brown Mokhotsi, who he told me was someone that was close to the minister, something that I now know to be a lie, not from General Lincoln's side. I had met Mr. Mokhotsi, spoken to Mr. Mokhotsi, sorry, on the phone once.
Take it slow. When did you speak to Mr. Mokhotsi?
I couldn't tell you if it was November of 2024 or December of 2024 or January of 20, but I had spoken to him on the phone once.
Because almost every case that is opened in Soweto relating to our terms of reference somehow has Mr. Mokhotsi's fingerprints. So listening to you, I suspected that you end up in Orlando because that was Mr. Mokhotsi's idea, and I could be completely wrong. That's why I needed you to ask the question so that you can assist us. What was Mr. Brown Mokhotsi's involvement in you ending up opening these cases and opening them in Soweto? And what was his communication with you and Mr. Lincoln?
From my side, there was no communication with Mr. Mokhotsi. Not on that issue. My communication with Mr. Mokhotsi happened on the phone with Andre Lincoln regarding...
It was a three-way call.
No, I was at his house on the day. He was speaking to him.
You were at Mr. Lincoln's house?
I was at Mr. Lincoln's house.
And it was in November 2020?
I couldn't tell you that.
But it was before you opened these cases?
I didn't write down the date, if you understand what I'm saying. It was just a phone call.
I don't need the exact date. I need to know, was it before you opened the cases?
I think it was after, but I don't want to lie to you, Commissioner, so it's hard for me to say. It was just a phone call. It was just, I was sitting at the General's house. This gentleman phoned. He said to me, say hello to the minister's friend, Brown.
And you were discussing crime intelligence issues?
No.
You were not?
Andre Lincoln, as I explained to the advocate earlier, had not been paid his pension.
Okay.
And he was complaining to Mr. Mokhotsi that the minister was doing nothing about it and it was unfair. And my involvement in that conversation was, not even Mr. Mokhotsi, I said, Brown, this is a good man, he served this country, this is not right. Okay. That was the conversation.
And that's where it ended?
That's where it ended. This is not right. That was the conversation.
And that's where it ended.
That's where it ended.
I'm going to bring Kenny. All right, and of course, we anticipate that a whole lot more will be said about that, because it seems that despite Adams distancing himself from Brown Mokhotsi, there may be a lot more to it than what meets the eye. Kenny Mapanga is also here. Our senior reporter has been watching not only the testimony, Kenny, but also what's taken place here just a few moments ago. Stuart Sharnik is also in the building. We know he's been connected to the likes of Shadrack Sibiya. He's been seen with Fediel Adams in different settings as well. And there was a bit of an interaction with one of the journalists a short while ago.
Yes, it seems that Stuart Sharnik, I think it's the second day of him being here. He was actually yesterday inside the building, that is the auditorium, and we know that this auditorium is filled with cameras as the commission is being captured and being fed to the nation. And it seems that he had a bit of a confrontation there with one of the journalists, and I haven't gotten the full details yet, but it was something about taking a photo, something of that particular instance. But we see the commission's team is now dealing with that particular issue, but he seems to have not only approached the area that is reserved just for the media according to the different tags, but he seems to have confronted the journalist as well off a photo. And we do know that when you're inside this particular auditorium, the cameras are rolling, and even if you're sitting in the public gallery, there is a chance that you may be captured there as well.
Right, and I suppose just for context, this place, Stuart Sharnik, like I mentioned, his name has come up before, but he's also had a brush with the law, we understand.
So we remember him from the evidence that was brought by Lieutenant General Dumsani Khumalo when he returned to the commission. He had that CCTV footage of that white vehicle, and he contrasted it with the visuals that we saw outside of the home of Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya when his house was raided. And then he gave us a synopsis of this individual that seems to always be around Shadrack Sibiya. We then know that at some time afterwards, I'm not sure what the gap was, that the KZN SAPS team then revealed the kind of rap sheet that this particular individual is alleged to have, and it's filled with all kinds of charges, even dealing with alleged hijackings, which is what Adams was trying to, I guess, clear him of yesterday, saying that the record had been expunged, or that's what he claimed before the Madlanga Commission. So he is someone that has been seen with Fediel Adams before. Remember that time in court where even our colleague, anchor Sakina, asked him about the optics of being seen with someone who had just made headlines, and he seemed to not take issue with it. And here Fediel Adams is appearing before the commission, and on both days we've seen this individual appear here before the Madlanga Commission. But this is a public venue, and there are journalists doing their work, and they should be allowed to do so freely and fairly. And it can't be an expectation to be inside an auditorium filled with cameras and express shock if you are captured by one of those cameras, as a public gallery is always captured doing so.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't want to be seen around this area, perhaps don't be in the area,
Absolutely.
so to
I
speak.
think I just saw him creeping back in now, so I'm not sure if there is an acceptance at this point that this is a public venue and these hearings are public, and you're likely going to be captured on camera should you be inside this venue. Even the journalists are captured, all our reactions as well to everything that happens. I've been captured myself with my reactions as well, so it's likely to happen that way as this information is being fed to the nation.
All right, hopefully the commissioner, beg your pardon, deals with whatever may have taken place there. At least from where we were standing, it looked quite concerning. Let's get back to the testimony, though, of Fediel Adams. A lot of time being spent, Kenny, in, or rather on trying to understand Fediel Adams's motives when he went about opening these different cases, especially when you consider the timelines.
Yes. And there's no conclusion yet, but I think the timeline is precisely what becomes a concern here, because you have an instance where it doesn't even seem that there was an intention for these matters to be investigated by SAPS. It seems to look like allegedly that it was a groundwork being laid for the matter to be referred to IDAC. And that context is important because you're seeing patterns emerging in the IDAC stream where things seem to be allegedly planned, allegedly part of a scheme, alleged plots. Nothing seems seems to make sense. And it cannot be accepted that you had such a concern in the one instance in Cape Town where you were told the dockets would be intercepted, then you go the very next day, and of course you have that concern as well without even giving the opportunity for those cases to be investigated. There's still even a lot of questions with Western Cape because the provincial commissioner told you that he will look into it, and in less than a day you're already moving on to the next location. It's also quite suspicious that the next location is one which witness G testifies that he told him to meet him at, the Orlando SAPS, because we do know that if it was just about laying a case in Gauteng, the first police station that you find is the one you would have gone to, but he went all the way to the Orlando SAPS to go and lay that case when he's not familiar with the Gauteng province. So everything about it just smells a little fishy at this point.
Yeah.
And he's struggling to reconcile the conduct with the kind of allegations that follow Project Diversion that emanates from his Section 27 referral. He even turns to the minister barely hours after the laying of the case, and one wonders what then informed you, and all you have is one source who is now late and cannot corroborate that story. Everything must be looked at within the context of what you see about IDAC and its handling of the crime intelligence matters, this pattern of doing certain things and then covering your ground to make it seem like the actions are legitimate, but really what's taking place below the surface is allegedly quite sinister, and that is what this evidence is pointing to or suggesting at this particular stage. It seems that allegedly it was some kind of an attempt to, it could be viewed this way, it's up to the commission to decide, to allegedly seem like you've exhausted all your options and then you keep getting hindered by this so-called interception, and now you've turned to the minister and the minister has now referred it to IDAC. So it's about making it seem above board, but it's those minor details in the process and the haste which is what's going to be a red flag and is going to be quite a troubling aspect for him to cover as he continues with his evidence today.
You speak about that haste, and it actually allows us to segue very nicely into a different part of the testimony today, Kenny, when the witness Fediel Adams was being engaged by Sesi Baloyi about what the urgency actually was. Eventually, through this interaction and several other questions that were posed, we heard Fediel Adams essentially conceding that the message he sent to the minister, where he claimed that these dockets had been intercepted, as a matter of fact, was false.
Looking for
Paragraph 4
of the letter to the minister.
Can I see?
3978.
3978. You're not saying they are about to do the same thing they did in the Western Cape. You say they've done the same thing. They're interfering in the investigation, in the investigative process, and this is less than 24 hours after you laid the complaint, and you represent to the minister that your dockets have been intercepted in Gauteng. That can't be, because your explanation now is General Lincoln said to you they're about to do that. So you were misleading the minister in paragraph 4 if you tell him that they have intercepted your Gauteng dockets, because your explanation now is General Lincoln said to you they're about to do that. Why do you say to the minister, less than 24 hours after you laid the charge, why do you say to the minister, what happened in the Western Cape has now happened in Gauteng, when that is false?
I think I preempted that, to be honest with you, Commissioner. I'm saying I've also been notified that Gauteng Police Department has followed the same modus operandi, which means they're taking the dockets or have taken the dockets, which I think is out of context on my side. It is not a deliberate attempt to mislead the minister. It is me saying to the minister, please act. That is what I'm saying, please act.
So you accept that General Lincoln, if he is the one that spoke to you, you accept that General Lincoln didn't say to you, the Gauteng police have intercepted your dockets. You accept that?
No. Yes, he didn't say they've taken, sorry, not no to you. He didn't say they've taken the dockets.
Yes, and so what is in paragraph 4 is in fact false.
No,
that you say to the minister. It may not have been your intention, you're explaining it now, but we are now looking at the text of what you said to the minister, and I just want to simply clarify beyond doubt that paragraph 4, to the extent that in its terms it says the police in Gauteng are doing exactly what happened with your dockets in Cape Town, was in fact false.
I will concede that I could have worded it better,
Okay.
Commissioner. I could have, and maybe I should stop being in such a rush with everything. I could have worded this better.
All right, thank you.
Well, Fediel Adams has already conceded that when you connect the dots, the process of how all of this has unfolded does stink. I don't think that's going to stop the commissioners, though, from continuing with this line of question when the inquiry resumes its work at 11:30.